rabbit is a fur-coated, warm-blooded animal and is one of the rodents. Its chief food is green plants, which are gnawed with the front teeth. Rabbits many centuries ago were to be found living only in the lands around the western Mediterranean, particularly Spain. Later, they spread further east in Europe and were introduced into the British Isles. From there, they went to Australia and New Zealand. They're also found in some islands off the west coast of North Africa.
And now, after many years of effort, they found their way to the Paranormal Rundown.
Hello, this is Avalon Lee and Dankworth Smythe. I have been asked to inform all potential listeners of the Paranormal Rundown that this episode, which just happens to be episode 19, contains potentially disturbing material concerning an alternative method of rabbit reproduction. If you find rabbit proliferation distasteful or anxiety-inducing, then perhaps you should seek out a less rabbit-filled or cuniculous podcast. Thank you.
May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth Smythe. I'd like to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the unusual, the slightly off-kilter, the frightening, the terrifying, the horrifying, and simply the occasionally entertaining. This is the Paranormal Rundown. There's no place else like it. Again, this week on the Rundown, we have no guest. That simply gives us more time to talk about any of 2,375 topics chosen randomly. Tonight you'll hear about the Book of the Dead, the Bandlet of Righteousness, Jellyfish UFOs, Roswell Rods, Memento Mori, and, of course, more rabbits than you thought you might ever hear on a podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Vic Hermanson, and this is episode 19 of the Paranormal Rundown. As usual, we have tonight Dave Griffith, hailing from somewhere in Florida. We have J.J. Johnson, hailing from somewhere in Virginia. We have Father Michael Birdsong, hailing from somewhere in Georgia, and myself, hailing from somewhere in Pennsylvania. And we now have 2,370 topics.
Wow.
To choose from. That's an increase of 10 from the last rundown. So I haven't been obsessively adding new topics, but I have added 10. So, does anybody have anything to say before we get going?
Yeah, one, you forgot to mention my super secret lair.
Yeah?
In which I plot world domination.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay.
Sorry, JJ.
So, you brought up a topic. I'm sorry, I'm going to rabbit hole for a second here.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind. When I was in 6th grade, I had a friend, and his name was James Cunningham. James Cunningham was the first...
Was he kin to Richie?
Richie Cunningham. No. James Cunningham was the first black kid who had come into our class there. And unfortunately, many of the kids wouldn't play with him. I would. James and I became good buddies. He was very, very smart. He was very, very funny. He was very imaginative. And he and I built an entire fantasy world in our heads of the tunnels that had been dug under the school, the spaceships we had down there, the weapons, the beautiful women that we had down there, all ready to, answer every need we had. All the rules that we had, and we wrote this stuff down in deep detail. And one day, my mother found my notebook, and she comes up and she says, "What is this? What is all this stuff? What do you mean you have 121 missile launchers and 400 naked women? Now come on. What are you- and so I had to explain to her what the notebook was. And at the end she said, "Oh, well, I guess that's pretty harmless." And so my secret lair is every bit as good as yours, JJ.
There you go.
Well, that's slightly better than being called into the principal's office and forbidden from distributing comic books that you had drawn about monsters that was giving all the other kids nightmares. So, yay.
Yeah.
You have any of those left hanging around, JJ? I would love to see one.
Oh, I wish I did. No, they are long since disintegrated into dust into some whatever rubbish bin they had found their way into. But yeah, but the hide behinds live on.
Well, didn't you have a whole ecology of hide behinds?
Oh, I had over 300. There were different seasons. It was kind of like a Transformers cartoon where there's Generation 1, which was the originals, and then there's 2, which involved animals, and 3, which involved ninjas, and it just kept going on. And it was ridiculous, but I loved every minute of it.
There's nothing ridiculous about that at all. I mean, how far away is that from being a Pokemon set? I mean,
yeah,
not very.
Hide behind cards. I like it. We could market that.
If you had a really good artist at the time and a little bit of marketing savvy, I mean, JJ would be a gaming billionaire.
It could have been the next Garbage Pail Kids. I'm telling you,
it would have been better than the Garbage Pail Kids. No matter
honestly,
what.
Honestly, I was one of those kids that came up with brand new Transformers and would draw the schematics for them and send them into Hasbro. And every single time I'd get a politely worded "thank you, but no thank you."
At least they responded.
Why do you think they even bothered to respond?
That's a good question. I mean, considering the fact that we were poor as hell and my mom did the best that she could, but it's not like I was the biggest purveyor of Transformers in the world, but they still took the time to respond in a very nice form letter, and I was kind of shocked.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome. That's awesome. JJ, I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
When you said that you had a secret lair plotting world domination, I will never look at you the same now, because every time I look at you now, and
do you just say brain?
No, well that too, but I'm gonna think of Lex Luthor.
Oh, okay. I think Pinky and the Brain. I can't help it. Tonight we plot to take on the world.
What do we do? The same thing as every night. Try to take over the world, or plot to take over the world. But okay, how about I do an F9?
All right.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Guess I better go back to the proper program. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there may be some repeats in this one. Number 1, human cloning. Have humans been cloned? Number 2, woman who gave birth to rabbits. Number 3, the Kentucky Petrified Girl. Number 4, Psychop. Number 5, Books of the Dead. And number 6, Medjugorje.
Book of the Dead, of course.
Okay, so JJ, you've had a less than 100% positive week. Why don't you just tell us about the Book of the Dead, the Books of the Dead?
Sure. So there are quite a few. The most famous, of course, is the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which kind of categorized a lot of different rituals and magical spells that involved the interring of the dead and making sure that the dead were rested and comfortable, with a whole host of other things. However, I actually just got through doing an episode last season on the Bandlet of Righteousness, which my favorite, not so favorite translator, E.A. Wallace Budge, had deemed the Ethiopic Book of the Dead, which is kind of a misnomer, but it is the Bandlet of Righteousness, which is a compilation of 8 magical spells that really invoke the name of God and the Trinity and other entities. And so it goes, at least according to the book. It was penned by Christ after getting explicit permission from his Father in a pen of gold, and he gave that to Mary with the express purpose of only communicate these secrets to those who can handle them. And the goal of that book is if you are interred with it, then you will not enter into Sheol, but rather pass through the narrow gate into heaven.
Where do I get a copy?
Yeah, really.
You can actually find it free online if you search for the Bandlet of Righteousness. You can find Wallace's kind of piss poor translation, but it definitely gets the point across.
Is a printed copy good enough to get in, or do you need a hardback?
So the thing is that you would. There's a couple of different interpretations of it. It's called the Bandlet of Righteousness, Lefafasidik in Ge'ez, because it is made to the length of the individual, the height of the individual, and in some cases you are buried wrapped in it. Which is literally why they call it bandlet.
That is interesting. So they just like a mummy, they wrap you in just one long scroll.
Yep.
That's got the book written on it.
Exactly.
Well, well, first off, would one think of the, well, there's not writing on it. I was thinking of the Shroud of Turin as being something similar. But that's much longer than the body of the person that it portrays.
Exactly.
Well, how
the
would
book is customized to have the person's name in it, and it's a lovely work. It's one of these things in which, not that I would want to be wrapped in it, but I would love to have one commissioned by the Ethiopic Orthodox Church to be buried with me, because it is a thing of beauty.
So this is still. So is this something that the Orthodox Church still believes in?
They do.
They do. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, the Ethiopic this book is kind of the closest modern incarnation of Gnosticism that you can get. And you find this a lot within the more mystical traditions of the Orthodox Church, such as the Coptic Orthodox and the Ethiopic Orthodox, in which they very much believe in magic. And to the Ethiopic Orthodox Church, they think that Christ is not only the Messiah, he is also the greatest magician who has ever lived.
And what exactly does that mean? I mean, are we talking magician as an illusionist? Or are we talking
as
magician
a
as
true
in
sorcerer?
Someone who can genuinely work outside of physical causality?
Yes,
miracles
the
and
latter.
sorcery. Yeah.
Right. In other words, the miracles he performed were really spells that were cast.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Right, JJ?
Well,
we talked about this once before, and you mentioned something about him raising water, a big wave of water or something. There was a story you gave.
In the Kebra Nagesh, The Glory of the Kings, which is a very famous work in Ethiopic, Christ is walking along the Sea of Galilee, and a demon called Nadada rises from the water, and she shoots a column of flame 134 cubits into the air, and then Christ waves his hand and utters a magical word, and she is then banished into the depths of the water again.
Awesome. Well, JJ, how does this also factor in with all the, how do I say this? With the purifying and the blessings and how the purifying and the blessings goes into the resurrection, into the afterlife, and all that with the Egyptian side of it.
I am not nearly the expert on the Egyptian side of the house. I've only partially studied some of the language, and I certainly have never taken a concerted effort into looking at a lot of their religious text. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I am not informed on that front.
Okay.
At least not to the point where I would feel comfortable talking about it.
Oh, well, I understand that. Okay. I just thought it was interesting, with the Eastern Orthodox Church side of it. It made me wonder, okay, well, what about the Egyptian side of it?
It's a good question. Yeah. I mean, you find a lot of really interesting things within the religious beliefs of the Egyptians, and you find a lot of that kind of actually ported over into other religions, especially this idea that in Hebrew that you have of ruach, or life or breath, something that is the animating force within all things. You find a very similar concept within Egyptian spiritual beliefs as well.
Okay.
But of course, the difference for the Egyptian side of the house is that they believe that the body was actually physically manifested into the afterlife.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
JJ, for the Ethiopic, the Book of the Dead, what's the oldest copy that they have of that? Do you know?
Oldest one that we have is, I think, around the 16th century.
Okay. And do they find tombs or people buried in them frequently?
I don't know. There's a lot of, like, for example, there is a specific library that's part of St. Paul's University in Minnesota, that's called the Hill Monastic Manuscript Library. And they make a concerted effort to go to Ethiopia and to the various monasteries and bring out the documented works that they have, make facsimiles of them, and they store them on premises. But I don't think it goes to the point of exhuming bodies, because I don't think they're that
right. But I was thinking of, well, I guess 1600s is not that old. I guess I was thinking of all of the, just like all of the archaeology they're doing in Israel, where they're finding all of these old sites and everything.
Oh yeah.
If they're finding old sites in Ethiopia, that they're like, oh, this one was buried in the the Book of the Dead. But I guess 1600s isn't that old of a site. So
yeah, I mean, I know that there are very worthy archaeological sites in Ethiopia. I'm just not aware of any current efforts that are currently taking place. However, the interesting part is that there's an older language which actually serves as the alphabet, although heavily modified, that is for classical Ethiopic and even the modern variants, although they've added some new flourishes to it, is Old South Arabian. And that's composed of 4 different languages, which is currently around the United Arab Emirates, Yemen type of area. And they were around for quite a long while. And that has a lot of archaeological interest. Of course, that area is completely war and torn, but the interesting stuff comes out from there all the time in that regard.
Cool.
How are Ethiopian churches set up?
Well, there's the Mother Church, which is in Aksum, Addis Ababa, and it's called Aksum. and that is supposedly where the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to be stored. And
That's the mother church.
yes,
Because it's a tiny thing. It's not a big, huge cathedral sort of thing.
No, it's not. And there
Kinda
is
like a little hole in the wall place, isn't it?
no. I mean, it is a nice structure, but it's not sprawling like Vatican City would be.
Right, or Cologne Cathedral or anything, or Notre Dame or anything like that.
Exactly. And then there are just churches scattered throughout the rest of the country. And they all there is a patriarch of the church. In fact, I think I've mentioned this before. I attended Ge'ez courses with the patriarch's brother, Johann. And it looked like he stepped out of a GQ magazine. It was hilarious. He was a really nice guy.
So when you say stepped out of a GQ magazine, you're talking the beautiful suit, the perfect tailoring, all of that, or
dressed to the nines every day. Like his clothes cost 20 times what mine ever would hope to. That kind of stuff. It was pretty interesting.
So he wasn't wearing traditional Ethiopian garb.
No, not at all.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of. I guess I'm straying a little bit here from that, but I've seen a lot of churches in that part of Africa that are dug out of the native rock.
Oh, that's Lalibela.
That's probably what I was thinking of. I had a friend that visited there, probably 20 years ago now, probably, and he brought back some pictures that he took, and he said, "Now this one is a cathedral." And it looked like it was a little hole in the wall place carved out of the side of a mountain. And I'm like, really? He said,
it's beautiful. It's absolutely, it is a true work of art.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would, and there are some really famous kind of churches in monasteries within Ethiopia. Lalibela is probably one of the most famous. You have the White Monastery, which is on the Isle of Wight, and it's famous for allowing no females to ever step foot on the island.
Wow.
Yeah. Not even animals.
Wow.
So this says there are 11 medieval monolithic churches that were carved out of rock. Their buildings attributed to King Lalibela, probably an interesting fellow to talk about, who set out to construct in the 12th century as a New Jerusalem. But no females, no girls allowed. The He-Man Women Haters Club.
There you go.
Pretty much to absolve them of any hint of temptation.
Doesn't that go even to animals?
Yes, it does.
So no women birthing rabbits on that island.
Correct.
Much less female rabbits.
Now, see that topic. Soon as Vic said it, I don't want to be Alice and go down a rabbit hole. Pun.
Well, look, Father B, I put as many
in the world. Where'd that topic come from?
Only thing that flashed through my head was this is a tabloid that came out from the grocery store, which I love.
The National Enquirer back in the 80s.
I miss those things.
You know what? That's what you could do, Vic. You could create a tabloid with all of the odd stories that you know.
I really could, yeah. I really could.
Have y'all seen the I don't quite remember the name of it. It was like True Men or Real Men with John Ritter.
No.
Oh,
the Three's Company guy?
Yeah. I love John Ritter, but this is a movie that had to have come out in the 80s, but it is phenomenal, and it is what Men in Black took every bit of their ideas from, every single one of them.
I have to see that.
But it's hilarious, but one of the kind of gimmicks in that movie is John Belushi. He's the other guy, and he's the agent, and he kidnaps John Ritter, who is the most plain Jane, everyday guy you would ever want to meet. And Belushi works for a super secret agency within the U.S. who's trying to save the world from alien destruction. And one of the things that they talk about is he goes to verify like some new sources he has, and he goes and grabs a tabloid from the supermarket, and he's like, "Yep, all of the stuff is true, every single bit of it." Every single
one of them. I will tell you, I am going to answer the rabbit question. The reason that I have the hang on. Let me go back to the rundown list, which is actually getting to be more than just a list. I've started to put a lot of little pieces of information about many of these topics. Okay, rabbit. Let's see. So let me search on the truths.
The only thing I know is they mate a lot and they taste good fried.
Woman who gave birth to rabbits. Her name was Mary Toft, and she lived in the 18th century. And the topic is in there because of my fascination with intellectual arrogance.
Okay.
All of you know somebody who's intellectually arrogant, who just is absolutely certain they know all kinds of things, even if they don't know all kinds of things. Mary Toft was a woman. Hey, this is the rundown. We're adults. I guess I should give an audience warning, trigger warning. I'm going to talk about adult topics. Who was endowed from birth with an extremely capacious vagina. And she found that she could place rabbits.
Oh. Shot who?
She could place rabbits in her vagina, little baby rabbits.
Wow,
And,
it's almost like Richard Gere with the ghost.
Well, yeah, but
boy, this took a turn that I did not expect. Okay,
she must be on that gopher dust.
Keep going, Vic. Just keep going. Okay.
Look at Dave.
This is what I needed tonight. I'm telling you. I can just imagine a woman furiously shoving a kicking
Okay,
come on.
Go forever.
We're not going to be able to publish this.
She could have a personal record chart on the wall. 1, 2, 7, 22.
Poor Peter Cotton.
Father Bird. All right. So
this week in our Easter episode,
how to dilate more than 10.
Okay. So anyway, in the 18th
century,
century,
water broke.
she would make it clear that she was pregnant, and she would probably wear some kind of pillow or something under her skirt or her dress, and so the community would be expecting her to have a baby at some point. And it's, midwives and doctors, there were people like that, and they would come and she would give birth to rabbits. And they would spread the story of the wonder of the woman who gave birth to rabbits far across the land. And of course people would come and say, I want to see the woman who gave birth to rabbits. Oh yeah, of course, that's 5 shillings. And so she could make money off having given birth to rabbits. Now, here's the thing. Apparently, of all the midwives and all the physicians who saw her, nobody said, it just doesn't seem right that somebody's giving birth to rabbits. So I wonder what's really going on here. So the story, first off, is one of a woman with unusual anatomy, also with kind of some chutzpah in terms of how she could fool people, and also physicians, highly educated people who were easily fooled.
And apparently she didn't have a whole lot else going on in life that she discovered she had this particular talent.
I have so many questions, and none of them are appropriate for this show.
Well, listen, you realize...
JJ just brought this up.
I've given you the limit of my knowledge here. I mean,
but see, JJ just asked a good question.
Yes.
What do you? I can just imagine sitting at home one day. How many rabbits can I stuff inside me? I mean,
Talk about
really?
basting. Sorry, I
Oh man.
Time to hit F9, Vic.
I got to walk away on that one for just a second.
No. We've got to finish it. I mean, there's a lot written about this. I mean, this actually would make a pretty good TTT episode. Yeah. This is a good TTT episode or triple T episode. And some of the I got to send you this picture. Hang on.
Wait, you're telling me there's a lot of documentation about
There
this
is
out there
a
on the internet?
lot of documentation about this. And I am right now in the Paranormal Rundown. I'm going to put a picture up here. And I want everybody to give me their thoughts about it.
Sorry, guys, I was having a hot flash.
You see the rabbits?
Yes, I
yeah.
see the rabbits.
And you notice they come out lively and ready to go.
I would say those rabbits look spunky.
Yeah.
They look, and
Well,
and that
look.
brings up a whole set of questions. But again,
Look, JJ knows everything in the world there is to know about Ethiopic
Basting rabbits.
Ethiopic languages and Semitic languages and Second Temple Judaism. Look, I'm going to match my knowledge of weird, ridiculous, totally useless things with with JJ's Second Temple Judaism knowledge any day of the week. So
Well,
this
that
is not
comment.
Go ahead.
That comment JJ made was freaking priceless. Basting rabbits.
Basting rabbits. So,
Oh, God.
anyway, there is a topic in here, though, and that is how easily highly educated people are fooled.
okay,
So,
I don't see how any doctor worth his name on a piece of paper could be fooled by this.
I don't know.
I mean,
who said that they were worth their name, having their name on a piece of paper?
fair enough. Yeah.
And it could be that they were kind of like, okay, well, this means there are going to be a whole lot of people coming to town. That's a lot of money. I can make some more money because of this.
Well, I just watched a series, guys, talking about any doctor worth their name on a piece of paper and stuff. And it's supposedly supposed to be a true series. I guess that's a relative term there. But it was called The Good Doctor. You guys ever seen that on Netflix?
I started watching that, and
It blew me away.
yeah, it was good, but I couldn't finish it.
What?
Yeah,
I had to
yeah.
step away for a second. What was it?
Talking about doctors, and but this, I started watching this series, and I just.
You're talking about
forced
Dr.
myself-
Death?
Dr. Death, that's it. That's it.
Is this
Oh, I thought you said the good doctor. That's completely different.
there are several Dr. Death things.
I was thinking of the Good Nurse, but yeah, this was Dr. Death.
Yeah. There are several Dr. Death things out there right now. One of
Yeah.
them is about a
This was about an orthopedic surgeon.
quote
or something
unquote
like that.
neurosurgeon in Dallas.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, so
it.
look, that's a really good point. Okay, in that this guy was not just kind of unqualified, he was exceedingly unqualified. And he was
Grossly unqualified.
grossly unqualified. I mean, he was essentially doing things like, well, I mean, Dave, it would not be outside the realm of possibility in the last years for you have had to have neck surgery.
Right.
You know,
And that's what scares.
Absolutely.
yes,
No, I had it offered at one point.
yes, that would not have been out.
Yeah.
Right.
When I watched that, yeah.
Well, I mean, so they have different surgeons. They have access surgeons. Okay, so neurosurgeons don't necessarily know all of the anatomy perfectly at the front of the neck. There's a lot of stuff in there that you don't want to mess up.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in there. Their job is to go in and to do that laminectomy, to take that disc out, to fuse those vertebrae, to do something very, very specific and skill-based in there.
When
And-
Sonia had her surgery, She had the same. She had. I think C3 and C4 replaced.
Right. Well, they can't replace them, but they can fuse them.
They put in some kind of synthetic disc.
Okay, they put a synthetic disc in. Okay, so she had really high tech stuff done. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's a complicated surgery.
Yeah, that's very high tech.
Oh yeah. I mean, the guy that done it was freaking phenomenal. But when he explained what he was going to do, I'm like, "You're going in where?" Because I was thinking the back of the neck.
You were thinking the back of the neck, and they're going in this way.
Right here. I'm like,
yeah, there's no access in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, to get access in the back, you've got to dig through a lot of tissue.
Okay.
In the front, you just kind of move things to the side.
Move everything up. Okay.
Yeah, and you can have a pretty clear field of view to get in there. But he did this for a long time, and even after he had essentially internally decapitated people,
right,
hospitals were standing by him.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that they were standing by him; they were shuffling him off to other hospitals.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to deal with him, right? I mean, he went up going hospital. They're like, okay, it's not my problem anymore; it's somebody else's problem. Whew, I don't have to worry about his lawsuits anymore.
Right.
Well,
it was absurd.
I mean, I was reading an article about him, and apparently there was one surgery at one point where the access surgeon just said, "Hey, get the hell away."
Exactly. Yeah, that was good.
You know, get the hell away from the patient. You know, your hands off this patient now.
So you got a situation where even in modern day medical practice, you can have completely screwed up doctors that have no clue what they're doing, still doing stuff. So I get where you're going, right? So back then, definitely not nearly as much control as there is now, not as much communication and everything else. So yeah, you could have a doctor who would see this and play along, or not know literally how it's happening.
But when it comes to rabbits,
well, if I'm correct, what finally happened was a midwife, okay, who probably had delivered most of the babies for the last 30 years in that village, and knew everything that could happen in a birth, just stood up and said, "Hey, look, you know, I've been involved in the birthing of 2,000 babies. Ain't seen a single rabbit yet. And something is screwy here.
I ain't birthing me no rabbits.
I don't know nothing about birthing no rabbits."
I don't know nothing about birthing no rabbits, Miss Scarlett.
Oh, God.
Miss Scarlett, I don't know nothing about no rabbits.
Well, you see, I put these topics in to the rundown list specifically for this purpose. To occasionally kind of, well, I mean, that's the literal rabbit hole.
There you go. Figuratively speaking, rabbit hole.
No, literally speaking.
Literally speaking.
Literally speaking. But
JJ, you're mighty quiet over there, my man.
he's trying to figure out how to keep us from getting an FCC complaint.
No, I'm honestly wondering how much further I can take it. I am a walking HR violation. What can I say?
Oh.
Okay. Do we want to continue to talk about rabbits and the fact
No,
that
I think we gotta go for the F9. Save us from
this
ourselves.
brings up the question of medical incompetence and intellectual arrogance? I mean, the world's got rabbits, the world's got medical incompetence, the world's got intellectual arrogance.
Well, I do know people that are so smart that has doctor degrees and so on and so on and so on, but they do not have a lick of common sense.
There are those
as we say
people
in the South. I mean, I'm like, are you serious? You have all these degrees. You're
Oh, yeah.
very intelligent, but you don't have any common sense.
You don't have any idea what's going on at all.
Well, I don't think it's a Southern thing. I think that is common everywhere.
Common everywhere.
I think that is, for one, it's a way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
You get into a very intellectual, nothing personal, JJ. You get into a very intellectual academic mindset, and it takes a certain way to think like that, and that doesn't always come with common sense. They view the world a certain way. It's very specific.
Very specific. Yeah. And there are. I mean, look, I have not paid dues in years and years and years. I was in Mensa. I was actually paid dues one year for 999, which is Mensa's 2%, 999's 99.9%. And look, you just run into these guys all the time, and essentially they've never had a need for, I guess, what you would call common sense. Their intellect has always carried them through.
Right.
So there's never really been a need for them to develop that, which kind of made me a little irritated. So I think JJ and I are kind of from the same spot. I mean, yeah, we've got a lot of brain cells that work, but we also...
I don't know what he's saying about you and I, Father Mike, and I'm a little concerned.
But listen, no.
It's going right over my head.
Me too. We grew up in households where it was uncommon to have to worry about if you're going to get to eat that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, that reminds me of a story. One of the guys that I'm speaking of, this was years and years ago. I was probably in my 20s, and this guy was in his mid 30s. Yeah. And he was smart. I mean, very intelligent. I mean, grew up in the same town I did. Okay. So he came home for one weekend. I said, let's go fishing. This guy didn't even know how to put a daggum worm on a hook.
Did it scare him?
Well, no. He just looked at me like, what'd I do? And I'm thinking, I did not say anything, but I'm thinking to myself, I said, you grew up in the same place I did, on the Chattahoochee River, and you telling me you don't know how to catfish?
Well, how about this? So I went to high school with a girl, lovely girl, really beautiful, was the class valedictorian out of our entire 423 people class. And yet, and she's gone on to be a chemist and very successful. However, every day in high school, I would walk up behind her and I would tap her on the opposite shoulder. And she would always look in the direction that I was tapping without fail. And this happened at least a good 300 times. Enough where anybody would know that there's a pattern. Not her. No.
Just never got
it. Could never get a joke. Didn't understand it. And no, she was not on the spectrum. It's just... I don't know. But yeah, there are people like that out there. And you just got to love them.
It's just like... how's that happen? How'd you do that?
It's magic.
Every time I feel that tap on that shoulder, I look over there, and there you are. What?
But
I don't understand.
Yes, Vic, I did teach him how to bait a hook, by the way.
Well, did you teach him to use the right bait? Because catfish, you're supposed to catch them with chicken liver, not worms. But that's okay.
Well, hold on. No. Hold on. I was teaching him how to catch brim.
Okay.
And then use the brim.
Well, brimmer, fun to catch.
Yeah, and I like eating just plain brim too. But
I mean, good panfish.
But yeah, if you catch some small brim and then go jug fishing at night, oh man, that's fun. Mm-hmm. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway,
all right, you got to find us some more topics because I am not going to name this episode Down the Rabbit Hole. Okay. So you got to find us something else, Vic.
I thought we were going to call it the brain dead night.
Everybody seems to be keeping up just fine. Okay. New topics. Number one, secret space programs or secret tech in general. Okay. Number two, the third man syndrome. Number three, Boltzmann brains. Number four, what is the worst smell you've ever experienced? Number Father Mike, are you okay?
All I got to do is look at Josh on that subject.
Are you thinking about basting rabbits again?
Yes, sir.
Number five is the Shroud of Turin. And number six is the mentally ill or the schizophrenic as shamans.
Well, I tell you what, to keep it on a light side,
yes,
and not go down something very serious tonight. I know we've talked about this very little in maybe the first episode that I was ever in. But what was it? Tell me again the name of the first one. The
Secret Space Program.
Secret Space Program.
And technology.
Okay. Now, like I said, I think we spoke about this very briefly one time.
We did.
But I cannot see how you can fake landing on the moon.
Well, we talked about that because Vic was talking about being able to remember the video from when the liftoff, and I proposed that the moon was hollow. and an observation station to watch us. That's right. But in terms of secret space, there's so much right now happening in space. We've got a lot going on. You've got the Chinese sending stuff to the moon. What is it? India just sent something to the moon?
India is doing pretty darn good.
India, Japan.
I must be living under a rock because I don't.
Chinese have a space station.
Yeah.
Do they have a? Oh yeah, do they have a space station?
Yes, they do.
Wow.
Cool. And I know they were doing something on the far side of the moon.
Yes.
But I don't know what.
They did some surveying.
I haven't seen it.
They did some surveying on the first side of the moon.
Yep.
And
took some beautiful photos.
Incredible photos.
I know about the dark side of the moon. I don't know about the far side.
Yes, I know, but yes, you do know about the dark side of the moon.
That's your favorite.
That's right. But now here I am turning into Alice again. I can't talk about space without bringing up how real do you guys believe all the stories, or what's your opinion on quote unquote Area 51?
Very good question.
Sorry about that rabbit hole, but I'm curious.
No, it's perfect.
It's a perfectly good question. Who wants to start?
Well,
because I'll talk for a long time if I get going.
No, I think you go for it, Vic. But you got to talk about. I'm telling you, I'm brain dead tonight.
Bob
Lazar, as part of that conversation. So,
okay.
I've teed it up for you, Vic. Go for it.
Who is Bob Lazar? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll explain it. Do you remember? It wasn't too long ago that there was this weird stuff happens on the internet.
Boy, that is the understatement of the millennia.
Weird stuff happens on the internet. There was a thing about, look, we're all going to go out to Area 51. We're going to get 50,000 of us up there. And,
that was brilliant.
And we're going to Naruto run into Area 51. Yeah, they'll kill some.
He's going to bum rush it.
He's going to bum rush it.
They can't kill us all.
They can't.
Yeah, it's a bold move when you got like 30 folks on the wall with like automatic rifles.
You know how that works out for you when you do it.
Yeah, but you can't kill everybody. That was the idea. You couldn't kill all of us. You could only kill some of us, and the rest of us will get in there into Area 51 to see what's in there. I don't think they'd find anything in Area 51 right now because I don't think Area 51's where they do the cool stuff anymore.
Okay.
I think you're probably right there.
Yes, I think Area 51 is where they did cool stuff at one time, and then guys like Bob Lazar came along, and then they realized. So, let me talk about this, and if I talk too long, well, then just tell me to shut up.
And they have moved it all to inside the mesas with those big doors that
big
open
doors
up
that
now
open
and
up
let the
out there.
ships out.
Well, I mean, literally, the people in the know call it Area 52. Okay, so obviously after Area 51, you get Area 52. I mean, duh.
Makes sense.
But
you'd hate to have to go back to Area 49.
So, for instance, every day, there are flights that leave from the Las Vegas airport, what's it called, McCarran?
Mm-hmm.
The McCarran Airport, on an unmarked 737 that flies out to Groom Lake with Area 51 employees. And people get off that airplane, they go to work there in Area 51, they get back on the plane, it flies them back to McCarran, they go out and they get in their cars, and they go home and they come back to do it the next day. Now, what are they doing? I think right now, most of those guys are probably just simply government scientists doing very, very straight up aerodynamic work. You know, they are working for McDonnell Douglas or Lockheed or Boeing or somebody like that doing really advanced airplane stuff, maybe some space stuff. But I also think that, and I do think this, that at times in the past, either Area 51, Groom Lake, or other places have had recovered alien technology. Okay, Bob Lazar was a guy who, I'll give the best Bob Lazar, let's see, how quickly can I do a Bob Lazar? Bob Lazar is
2 minutes or less, Vic.
Bob Lazar is a very odd-looking guy. Looks like a heron. And he's a big, tall, skinny guy. He apparently kind of got himself in trouble some years back with the government because they thought he was going to release information concerning what happened at Area 51. When you go to work at Area 51, they not only want you to have the credentials, but it's like many other things in the government. They want your life to be stable. Okay, they don't want you using drugs. They don't want you going through divorces. They don't want any big credit hits. They want your life to be stable. And he was at a point where his marriage was falling apart. And so he came to the attention of those people who had hired him. Now, at this point in time, they say he never worked there.
Can I interject one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Now, I think when it comes to they don't want you going through a divorce, I think that's pretty personal and nobody's business. But that's just my opinion.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I can understand that.
I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there.
I can understand that opinion, but believe me, there's no stone they leave unturned. There's no orifice they leave unexamined. There's no part of your life they don't know about.
Wow.
If you're going to work in these kind of programs.
Well, and they don't want you in any compromising situation.
Correct.
Right? They don't want any kind of stressor that can be used to get at you to divulge information.
Correct. Now, so Bob Lazar, his story is that he was hired to go to Area 51 and to, in a very compartmentalized fashion, reverse engineer alien craft. Okay, and there are very many things about the Bob Lazar story that make it impossible for me, at least, to dismiss it. First off,
do you think we have actually found alien craft?
Probably quite a few.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, probably quite a few. Now, what they are, I don't know, but they would be calling these alien craft, and not just one. Maybe as many as 50. I have a list listing the craft that were found, where they were found, the bodies that were with them, or the live aliens that were with them.
Now, I believe I've seen one before, but I've never wanted to think I was crazy. So
yeah, but they didn't crash in front of you.
Well, true.
Okay, we'll get to you seeing them anyway.
Okay.
So there are things that he said that just, as time goes on, they seem more and more correct. So first off, he said that these craft run off of element 115. And when he said that, we didn't even have element 115 yet. Element 115 is now called Moscovium. Told you I knew a lot of weird stuff. Is now called Moscovium, but at the time it was called Unun Pentium. So 1 Unun, 1 Pentium 5. Element 115. Now, it's only an element that has been synthesized in particle accelerators or similar.
I'm sorry, Vic. You said un pentium. I'm glad you broke that down for me because that didn't click in my brain. un 1, Pentium 5. Got it.
Okay, sorry.
I'm a little slow.
Was I insulting you there? I didn't mean to.
No, not at all. It went.
Okay, so, the Moscovium that exists now exists for milliseconds. Okay, so there's a whole experiment set up to create a little bit of this stuff, and its half-life is attoseconds, so it's just gone almost immediately. But it does exist. Now, apparently, according to Bob Lazar, there is some technology in other worlds where they can make a bunch of Unun Pentium or Moscovium, and that's what these craft run on.
And specifically, that's what the anti-gravity is run off of.
That's what the anti-gravity is run off of. Now, there have been a real rash of UFO videos lately. A whole bunch of videos of UFOs coming out. And some of them are the Tic Tac craft, but a lot of them are this standard flying saucer craft. Okay, it's like a saucer with bulges on the top and the bottom and the middle. You can picture that in your mind, right? Well,
yeah, like the old traditional
flying saucer. Yeah,
it's the plate with a lump in the middle.
Plate with a lump in the middle. Pretty thing. He called that the sport model, and he talked about how it flew. And the big mistake he made was he knew the schedule where they tested these things, and he took a bunch of his buddies out to a local mountaintop to watch it. So listen, at 9:30 they're going to bring the sport model out. You can see this.
Right.
They didn't like this. Bob Lazar was not a smart guy in terms of keeping his job. But he said things like, look, they don't fly like you think they fly. They turn themselves sideways, and they go through the air vertically. And, man, there have been at least half a dozen videos I've seen lately of pilots taking images of these things flying through the air vertically. They're not.
And more importantly, one of the government confirmed videos called the gimbal video shows a saucer-like craft turn and face into the wind like that and take off.
Yeah, and so these are, and his story has, once again, not deviated any in the entire time that he's been part of the public eye, which is now probably going on 25, 30 years? I mean, anyway, so, yes, Father Birdsong, I do believe that the U.S. government and probably other major governments have recovered exotic technology. Whether it's alien or not, I don't know what it is.
This has happened worldwide. There
Yes.
are somewhat credible reports, especially in South America, of craft crashing. There's, certainly a lot of, I won't say video evidence, but a lot of eyewitness reports that seem credible from a long time ago, right? Around the world that were definitely before we had craft that would do, things that our craft can do now.
Well, all our craft can do now is fly really fast, really high, and be almost invisible to radar. They can't turn on their edge and fly without jets.
And that is where, like in my sighting, the most interesting thing was the way that they zipped across the sky and switched direction and zipped back across the sky and another direction.
Well, that's
the instant stop, turn, go the other way, and the gravity, the G's that would force would crush somebody.
Turn you into jello.
It's not possible.
Well,
not with the technology, and that was back in 92. So, I mean, we're way back in terms of technology compared to now.
That's like the one that I believe that I saw that time. It was probably 89, and I was with two other people at the time, and where I grew up at that time I was probably 50 miles north of Fort Benning and 70 miles away from Warner Robins,
Yeah.
I was living in the Chattahoochee River area.
Right, you were kind of in that big military corridor down there.
Yeah. And this thing was flying real low, but you couldn't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to reason it away. Well, it's probably going too. Well, no, it wasn't going fast because it was just like hovering in the sky. And one of the guys said, "Oh, it's probably one of those new, what's it? The stealth bomber that
stealth fighters, F-117."
Yeah. Well, when they first came out, but no, this was shaped like a diamond, not like one of those. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, it shoots off in one direction. I mean, just like the speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
Stops, shoots back the other direction, and like Dave was talking about, and never made a sound. No after sound. No after. I mean, like when a fighter jet flies over you now, you'll see it. Then 10 seconds later, then you'll hear it. Nothing like that. I mean, it's just. But the lights that was coming off of it were all different colors.
Sure.
And I'm like, what
I used to live directly in the path of the main runway for MacDill Air Force Base. And F-4s and other fighter jets would take off over my house and turn their afterburners on at about 250 feet.
Makes quite a racket, doesn't it?
Oh, man. I can remember the first time we moved there, and we're in the driveway looking at this little house we're moving into, and I had no idea. Just suddenly, the earth is ending. This huge sound comes across. Scared the heck out of me. And then a week later, you didn't even hear it anymore. Your brain just filtered that sound out.
Yeah, you just filter it out.
Right.
When you had your sighting, Vic, let's say the one where the family was in the car with you.
Yeah.
Were you living near MacDill then?
No, this was in Kentucky. No. This was in Kentucky.
That was in Kentucky. Okay.
That was in Kentucky.
Was it near any sort of Air Force base there?
I don't know. Are there any Air Force bases around Lexington?
The only base I know of anywhere is Army, and that would be Fort Campbell.
And Fort Knox.
Yeah, but that's way far away from
way far away from that.
Well, have y'all seen the video of the jellyfish craft?
I saw something, but it looked like what I saw looked like a kite.
I've seen there's two different ones now. There was one that was in the Middle East, which is kind of the most famous one. There was another one that actually took place in a different part of the world that was captured. They look remarkably similar, but the outline looks remarkably like a jellyfish that is in stealth mode. I can't describe it any other way. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I don't know what the hell it is, but I wish to goodness I did.
Well, there's a whole area or category in ufology of, well, I say it's got to be ufology, of living creatures that are supposed to be floating around in our sky.
Yes.
That look like jellyfish. They are clear, and you can only see them in certain light situations, and there's this whole theory about these massive creatures that are floating around in our airspace, much like they would float around in the ocean. And there's some interesting photos of them. I don't know. I have kind of a hard time thinking, an airplane hasn't run through one at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that.
know?
Yeah, huge things floating around out there. Sooner or later, something's going to hit one.
Yeah, that
You wouldn't
sounds
think
like
that they
it,
would move that fast, but
that sounds like it came straight out of the STP Foundation.
well, I mean, there are people that swear by them. There's people that's the main thing that they research are those creatures, and they don't call them craft, right? They think of them as biologic beings that are floating around in the air.
Well, first off, who remembers Jose Escamilla?
No clue.
I'm such a weirdo. But
Hey, you
You
said
said it, I didn't.
Jose Escamilla was a guy. He was a videographer, a very high end videographer.
Is this the chemtrail guy?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
But he worked for, movie studios and TV stations and this kind of thing. So he had really, really super high end equipment. So it's not like a guy out there with a $199 Radio Shack camcorder or anything. Mm-hmm. He had genuine movie level equipment, and he started seeing these things that he called rods. And he first started noticing them in the Roswell area. You can see he called them Roswell Rods. And I have seen situations, and I've even done it myself, with certain lighting and certain frame rates. Insects, just the movement of their wings, ends up looking like this rod that's flying through the air. Really fascinating. However, I don't think that's what Jose Escamilla was. He could at will, on command, he could create the insect rods. He knew exactly how to set his camera. He knew exactly what the frame rate needed to be. He knew exactly what the lighting needed to be to get a rod out of insects. But then he could go and get them where there were no insects. And that story has kind of faded away. I haven't heard anything about Jose Escamilla or rods in a long, long time.
There's another theory that, and I haven't tried this, but I have seen websites that describe how to catch them, that there are craft zipping around in our airspace all day long. Mm-hmm. But they're moving so fast that we visibly cannot see them. Mm-hmm. And you have to use a camera with a super, super high,
So you're essentially using
shutter rate.
Right. And I've got one of those cameras.
And I'll have to dig that up. I'll have to look for it. But I've seen a website that gives like line by line instructions on how to set up the camera and take the pictures and where to look and everything else. But supposedly they're zipping around all the time.
I have a camera that will do 960 frames a second.
That's a lot of frames.
It's a lot of frames. Now, that's not 100,000 frames per second or anything like that. But I don't think that it has to be that fast to catch something along those lines.
No, I don't think so. It seemed like it was, you had to have a nice camera to do it, but you didn't have to have a 10,000 frame.
Right. Those things
camera.
cost $250,000.
Yeah, they're a lot of money.
Yeah.
The video taken with them is so cool.
Well, so Father Mike, I mean, do you find anything? I'll ask you from the religious side of things. Do you find anything about this that seems demonic, or does this all seem to you just simply a matter of technology we don't understand?
I personally view it as technology that we don't understand. I mean, as far as the other side of the coin of what you said, I think too often, too quickly, the quote unquote charismatic world are too quick to put a demon on anything.
They really are fast about that, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but to me personally, you cannot have science without God. You can't have God without science.
Well,
I think they have both proved each other. And so to demonize anything like this, we're humans, and there's things that we don't understand, and we just got to come to the conclusion and have the guts to say at times, I don't know, I don't understand it, but it may be real. Nothing I can do about it. So,
I wrote to Bob Lazar to try to get him in the rundown. Or no, or on triple T. But he can come on the rundown too. That'd be fine.
You could do both. That would be. I doubt he would do the rundown.
I doubt if he would do it. But
what was you going to say, David?
Well, I've been in a conversation recently about aliens and souls. Mm-hmm. Right, and it was a conversation, a much deeper conversation about souls, and who has them. But
may I interrupt you for a second
Sure.
to ask a question before you go?
Yeah.
Is this the John Lear stuff?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, this was just a different Discord conversation. And it was. It was. I made this comment. It's funny to me, but I have no problem with the idea that aliens have souls. I have no problem with the idea that God could have created
whatever God wished to create.
Other
exactly
beings elsewhere in the universe.
Sure.
That have souls just like people.
No problem at all.
I also have no problem with the idea that maybe there is some correlation between aliens and angels don't have souls, right? I mean, that's
kind of the well,
it's sort of understanding, right?
Well, it's to me that's all very confusing, and
that's a very fine line.
No, angels don't really have souls, but they're immortal as non-physical beings. So, do you really need a soul?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I look at from a religious standpoint, aliens don't bother me one bit, and I'm always surprised at the immediate aliens or demons. Right? It's a demonic.
That's BS.
Maybe it's a. Now you might say some of the cases of abduction might be demonic experiences that are being tailored to appear to be abductions, right? Like an obsession type of putting it in your mind that this is what happened when really it was a demonic whatever. But the idea that you got craft, you got bodies, you got creatures that apparently aren't from here, unless they're, living inside the earth or under the ocean,
or in the hollow moon,
or possibility, or in the hollow moon. Absolutely.
Yeah, they could live in the hollow moon for sure.
I just can't. Now, way longer ago, my thought process was totally different. But now I cannot look at you and honestly say that I believe 100% that the human race is the only thing that God ever created. Why? Because I'm not God. I don't know that. Sure. And for me to say that is kind of like a prideful statement saying, I know more than God.
Okay, I'm gonna make a request because at some point, since we're talking about aliens, UFOs, perhaps being demons, other things there are people who say that anything you encounter that you don't understand immediately, that's a demon.
What?
Oh, look! When I'm listening to certain very conservative, evangelical Protestants, for the most part, you've got the normal world and you've got demons. Nothing really is in between. So, Bigfoot are demons, and if you happen to ever see a Loch Ness monster or something like that, that's a demon. A shadow person is a demon. A ghost is a demon. Everything is a demon. Dave, am I speaking?
You are
out
not off, but now
am I speaking
will not
out of turn
say
here?
that is a general Protestant perspective, but
No,
there are definitely
I'm saying
more
there's a-
Protestants that say that than Catholics.
I'm saying there's a
Come down south, and Dave and Vic and JJ, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you ever seen a real alligator gar fish, you
have.
call that a demon too.
I have.
My son's caught one.
I've caught an alligator gar in the Houston Ship Channel.
They're funky.
Caught an okay, but here
Yeah, they are.
this is a personal request, and I'm going to leave it in. There's going to be a conversation we're going to have someday
Okay.
about an experience that I've had that only Dave knows about right now,
Okay.
and Bert's episode.
Yeah, only me and anybody else who's ever listened to
Anybody
your
else has ever,
podcast.
but I don't care about them.
Okay.
And I don't care about them. Okay, if they want to write to me and talk about it, I'm happy to write. I'm happy to talk to them about it. Okay, but at some point, this is going to come up, and Dave will know what I'm talking about, but neither of the other two of you know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well,
So the assignment or the request is,
okay.
please listen to the Triple T episode I did with Bert. If you don't want to listen to the whole thing, that's fine. Just listen to the last part of it.
I've been dying for Vic to talk about this.
I can't
on
talk
here.
about it unless they know what I'm talking about, and I'll tell you why. It's a painful thing for me to talk about, and I don't want to be a Bob Lazar telling the same story over and over and over again.
No,
So,
it's fair.
At some point, would Father Birdsong and JJ please listen to the last part of that episode?
I've listened.
And it's on the backlog now.
I'm gonna have to re-listen to it because I did listen to it, but I don't.
Nothing
recall
stuck
it.
in your mind of you couldn't have listened to it.
No, I might have missed the last 15 minutes of it or something.
This might have been a heavy medication
was at
day
the
or
end.
something.
It might have been.
Yeah, it might have been a heavy medication day or something.
Yeah. But yeah, because I remember texting you in the middle of it and saying, "This is a cool episode." So my bad.
No bad. It's just that it limits the way we can talk about something.
Okay.
That if it ever comes up, I want to talk about it completely.
And it's going to come up because I'm not going to wait but for so long.
Well,
So y'all get to listening.
I'm going to be listening this weekend then, and then I will take the bull by the horn and say, "Okay."
I'll even
let's
write
do
out
it.
I'll even write out that part of the episode and send it to you if that would make it easier.
That'd be good too.
Okay, I can do that.
And but see, the reason why I say that is so we can look at it during our conversation, and that way, if anybody has questions, we can say, "Well, what about this? Or what about this?"
Well, I'll tell you what. I will make a video
Okay.
of me talking so that you can see my face while I'm talking to Bert about this.
Now that would even make me even more happier.
Okay.
And that way I can take it in more.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay. So, this has been pretty fun. We've talked about rabbits. We've talked about Area 51.
Please
Still
don't
searching for a title, so let's pick another topic.
Yes. The brain dead guys.
Nobody wanted to
Oh,
talk
you're
about the
already messing
worst,
with it?
the worst smell you've ever experienced, I guess.
Not interesting enough for me.
David, did you see the picture that Josh sent to you?
I
Okay,
did.
you saw it.
Yeah, I told him you got to stop with the wabbit stuff.
Oh, God. Sorry.
All right, Vic, what do you got? What's
All right,
next?
Come on, Vic. Get my mind off this.
Okay.
And let's make whatever this one the final one, because I am starting to fade.
You're a
Yeah,
very
me
tired.
too.
You're a very, very tired boy.
Fair enough.
Okay, that's the final one. So let me see. Just give me a second here. Let me get everything reset. Okay. Hey, oh man, it came with the blank one. I must have erased something at some point.
JJ, I'm working on about 36 hours straight myself.
I've got nothing on you then.
36 hours is too long. You will sleep really well though.
I will.
I'll tell you what happens to me when I get that sleep deprived.
I get jacked up.
I have really bad nightmares. That's when I have
Oh,
nightmares.
no.
Okay, here we go.
Well, actually, before you say, I don't think I ever shared this little detail, the nightmares that I've been having.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, you have. Not on the
felt-
show.
Yeah, but I felt physical pain in all three of them.
That's a bad nightmare.
Yeah.
That's no fun.
JJ, did you get my message where I want to say I see an email or a text on Discord where I wanted you to write them out and send it to me where I can dissect it?
Yeah, and I'm going to. Actually, I
Okay.
think I'm going to make I think that's going to be my lead episode for season 5, honestly.
If you'll send that to me, I would love to be a part of that episode with you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to detract. Go ahead, Vic,
No,
please.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Me and them wabbit hoes.
Okay, here we go. Number 1, multiple flood myths. Number 2, Termite Queen relocation. Number 3, evolutionary creationism. Number 4, hypermnesia, which is astounding memory recall. Okay. Number 5, Memento Mori. And number 6, the sacred feminine, I guess, as opposed to the sacred masculine.
Well, we can't talk about the removal of termite queens without talking about Ender's Game, and I don't want to get into that. not tonight.
Do you guys know what that is refers to?
What?
The relocation of termite queens.
No. Well, you opened it up. Go for it.
Look, let me just give you the quick. Okay, so this is something that scientists started talking about as a possible paranormal or supernatural mystery about 1850. So there's a breed of termite. You've got to have seen this animal. The termite queen, its body turns into this huge white sausage-looking thing that's hundreds of times longer than its body, full of termite eggs. And it's in a hard, mud-baked kind of enclosure where the only...
Hive queen.
It's like a hive queen. The only things that can get in and out are the little tiny termites that can come through little holes. Well, sometimes something threatens the nest, and without that chamber being destroyed, that termite queen ends up somewhere else. And so the question is, how do you move a termite queen? And we don't need to go into that, but I think it's kind of an interesting thing.
Well, I can tell you how it happens.
How's that?
Ender comes and puts it in the puts it in his backpack and takes it to another planet with the little piggies.
With the little piggies, with the pequeninos.
You know this is your fault, right?
What, that I've the whole paranormal rundown is my fault.
No. I'm talking about the Ender's Game.
Oh yeah. Well, no, you'll think about
I loved it. I loved them.
You'll think about Ender for years.
Yeah.
You will find yourself saying, I don't know, just lines will come up, and the whole idea of Jane. That's a fascinating topic.
It is. Yeah.
It's a fascinating topic. How about Memento Mori? Because I have some Memento Mori.
What is that?
Memento Mori means mementos of death.
Oh, all right.
And
that's
okay.
Latin, darling. He's obviously an educated man.
Who are we talking about?
That was that was a movie quote. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, what they're talking about are the photos that they took of people after they died.
Okay.
And in Victorian times, this is one of those things where you get the debunkers saying, oh, no, this didn't really happen. And I'm telling you, if my family is any indication, it happened quite a bit.
Yeah, this is where they pose them after death for the photos, correct?
Pose them after death for the photos.
I'm with you now. Yeah. I've even seen people sitting up in chairs dead.
Well, I am not going to get up and go try to find, because I didn't plan on talking about this. If I had, I would have the photo in my hand, ready to go. Okay, and so I have a photo. Well, actually, I have 5 or 6 Memento Moris. I have diaries that talk about the creation of Memento Moris.
Okay.
Where they will say things like, Father died today. There are no pictures of Father anywhere. I'd like to have a picture of Father before we have to bury him. So I sent Junior into town to get the photographer. The photographer came out. It's the whole story of what they did.
And set Pop in a chair
and set Pop in a chair. Now look, so it's a family.
Now, how morbid is that? I just can't see it happening.
Well, I
don't think it's done from a morbid standpoint.
I don't think it's done from a morbid standpoint. Can you guys talk for 30 seconds? Let me see if I can find this photo real fast.
I just I don't know. What did go ahead, DJ.
It's not that morbid at all. I mean, if you look at, have y'all seen pictures of Fayyum mummies?
Yeah.
So,
what's a Fayyum mummy?
So it came from the area of Fayyum, but what would happen is that everybody would get, at least those that could afford it, they would get a portrait of them painted. And these portraits are beautiful.
I found it.
That's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah.
Okay. Look at, let me see if it'll focus that close. Look at the faces of the rest of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that about as unhappy a family as you've ever seen?
Yep.
Okay. And I remember when I first found this photo, I'm the family archivist, and I was thinking, my God, what happened to these people? Why are they so horribly, horribly sad? And I was thinking, were they abused? Was this a, really dysfunctional family? Now,
it just looks like Pop's got his eyes closed.
Notice his feet. Okay? The front legs of the chair are not touching the ground.
Huh.
The mother, this extremely happy-looking woman right here, has her hand on his shoulder, as does the other on his shoulder, as does the other son, because they are tipping that chair back enough where he doesn't slump forward.
So his head doesn't flop forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you can I've scanned this many times, but they're barely, his eyes are just barely open. But they're open enough where you can see the sclera, and the sclera are all brown. And if you look at his hands are flaccid, and I have a diary entry about how this photo was made. This man's dead.
And if you think about it, I mean, it's not like he's been, gone to the funeral home and then embalmed and everything else, right?
Right.
He's going to have more of a natural look than you would today.
Well, I
it's you're done up with the makeup. They try to make you look right,
sure,
but you don't. So, if you did a photo, you would get something close to what he looked like in life.
You would get something close, but you can't hide the incredible tragedy in the faces of the other people in that photo.
Yeah.
Okay, you just can't. And so, this gentleman, who is distantly related to me through my mother's family. This is either in West Texas or Southern Oklahoma, because we had people in. This is like 1890 or something. So this photo is 140 years old, and I have just a little bit of information about it. But apparently, the skeptics, those people, as Chris James would say, those people seem to want to debunk anything like this. Say no, they never really did do these photos, but my family did.
What's the purpose? Why? I mean, it seems like a fairly simple thing to me.
Yes, it does. It does.
Well, people take pictures of folks laying in the caskets now. I mean,
I took pictures of my dad when he was dead. I didn't take pictures of my mom after she died, but I did for my dad. I did with my dad.
JJ, you were going to say something about Fayyum mummies.
Oh, yeah. So before people died that had enough wealth, they would get a portrait painted of them. And these portraits are beautiful. I mean, they are of Victorian style 1,000 years before there was a Victorian style.
Correct.
Probably the most advanced artwork that had yet to be created. And after the person passed away, the portrait would then be modified with celestial jewelry. And they would mummify the body, wheel it back into the house, put the portrait over top of the head, and it would be wheeled out to dinner for a year with the family. You'd eat with it, and then after a year, it would then be interred.
Now, that might be a little closer to the idea of morbid. But
I don't think it's more, but I would find it, I think, very comforting to think that my family is going to eat Sunday dinner with me at the foot of the table for the next year. I don't know why, but I think I would find that comforting, especially if I lived in that time and had their religious views.
Yeah, I think I would as well. Cause
these portraits are stunning, and it's Fayyum is Fayyum. For
or
anybody who's looking it up.
Fayyum.
Oh, I found it under Y. Okay. JJ's the expert. YYUM.
JJ,
But
isn't there a Jewish tradition? Oh Lord, to where after someone died, that they would actually do something like that for a period of 1 year in memory.
The only.
What am I thinking of? That was a year.
Well, I mean, there might be mourning for a year.
Nah, I can't.
In fact, in Judaism, there is a strict adherence against ever touching the dead.
Yes.
Well, yes.
And if you did, you would actually have to be purified with the ashes of a red heifer. And considering that
I think what
hasn't been a red heifer.
Well,
I think what I might be thinking of is the priesthood after they married, they had to do something for a year.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
So-
There was something about a year's time, but anyway.
So here's my question, Vic. You know, some folks feel like, you know, something's captured when you take a photo. Do you think having a photo of the dead is potentially could that be more likely to be haunted?
I don't know how to measure such things. I mean, how do you determine the likelihood of haunting?
I wouldn't think so.
Do you get EVPs in your podcast when the photos are around?
Oh man, when I was listening, I've got to start editing Chris James audio, because when I was talking to him last night, man, I swear I was hearing whispers all over the place. He'd start talking, and I'd hear this kind of sound, and I was trying to make any kind of sense of it. Didn't make any sense of it at all. But I'm wondering if I'm going to be getting whispery EVPs.
You were hearing it through your headphones.
I was hearing it through my headphones while I was recording.
And he wasn't hearing it? Did you ask him about it?
I asked him, Chris, did you hear that? So, do any of your families have Memento Mori?
Yes.
You have one.
I don't personally, but my family has pictures of dead family members. Yes.
I'm going to have to go back. I have some old pictures that I got from my grandfathers, and now I'm going to have to go back and look. I never thought about any of them having somebody in them that was dead, but I have some very old pictures like that, and now I'm going to have to go check.
I don't have anything like that, but I have been looking through old photo albums, and there's this. All of a sudden, there's this dead person laying in an old-timey casket. I'm like, what the heck is that?
There's that. And that's a little different kind of thing. It's just a matter of, let's get a picture of Bob before Bob goes in the ground.
But now, I have to say, the picture that you got versus one of somebody laying in a casket is a little bit more tasteful than somebody laying in a casket.
Well, so I have... Most of the other ones that my family has are of children who have died. And those are a little creepy, too.
Yeah.
And I only have a diary entry on one of them, but then it's clear that these other kids are dead. So, well, I don't see anything wrong with a family wanting a picture of someone that they loved.
The way I see it in this situation is to each their own. You know?
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
I certainly see nothing sinful about that.
No.
I will say that to me, and this is speaking of from personal bias, there would be a stark difference between living in a time in which you had limited to no access to photography and having that desire, as opposed to living in the here and now where you carry a camera in your pocket every single day.
24/7, yeah.
And then wanting to have a photo. When my grandmother was interred, we had a family friend come and bring a disposable camera and start taking photos of the funeral and of the body. And everybody was abhorred. And we didn't say anything because we were a little too shocked to do so, but I still think back on that, and I am repulsed by that very idea. So,
who was that was taking the photos?
A family friend who's not from, I don't think she's originally from the same area that we are, but it was a friend of my mom's through work.
What do you think they were doing with those photos?
I think they just wanted to capture memories, no matter how sad or distasteful they may be. But I honestly have no idea. I mean, she is a very heartfelt individual. There was certainly no malice involved. We know
Okay.
that for a fact.
Okay.
I think she was just trying to do something that in her mind was good, but everyone around her looked at in horror.
And I can understand that point of view too. You know, people are going to take these situations differently. I mean, some people would take of the mind where, you know, let them be, they're gone. And some people would want to remember it for some reason.
I mean, for me, if I'm going to have a photo, I would want the photo from when they were alive and well.
Me too.
Not from when they're sitting embalmed in the casket.
Right.
I'm of the same mind there. And that is the only reason why I said, you know, isn't that kind of morbid? But, you know, like I said, to each their own. You know, I can't fault you. If you want that, go for it. Me, I want to remember Uncle Bob when he was alive and well, and we were catching catfish on the bank of the Chattahoochee River.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But and like you say, everybody views it different. So
Yeah.
you know, you take Vic's statement earlier that
Yeah.
I would find something comforting about sitting with my family for a year after passing at dinner. I would want my family to remember the good times and move on.
Yep.
I wouldn't want the focus on that. And so, you know, we each see things differently, but it is sort of, like you say, in modern times, JJ, it is sort of borderline on the more morbid side of things, when you should be able to fairly easily get recent photos of them when they were alive.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like my great grandmother and great grandfather, there's only a handful of pictures of them. And one of the main ones that I have that I love is a photo of them that were sitting Native American style on the ground, because that's what it was. But it's a beautiful photo. But at the same time, there's a photo of my great grandfather all by himself that used to hang over my bed that scared the ever living bejesus out of me. But
what scared you so much
Why
about
did it
it?
scare you?
this is the one that when I had the dream about the thing creeping out of the attic and then pronouncing that I was going to die on November 2nd.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked up in the picture, my great grandfather was staring back at me with radiant eyes.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I'm
JJ,
like,
far too much
nope.
of your brain is devoted to having bad dreams. I
That's me. What can I say?
mean, it's way too much. So, well, JJ mentioned in passing the SCP Foundation that I really would like to talk about sometime.
Yeah, I do. I actually want to talk about it as well. Not tonight.
Not tonight, but sometime. Do you guys know what the SCP Foundation is?
No.
No.
I think it means secure, control, and protect.
Exactly.
Yeah, secure, control, and
I've heard of it, but I'm not too familiar with it.
it's a really, really cohesive, organized, creepypasta kind of thing.
Well, we definitely got to talk about it then.
Okay, where they've put together an entire world of these things that they are securing, protecting from, either to keep them from being damaged by the world or to prevent them from damaging the world.
Okay, why don't we do this then?
We can make that something.
JJ's about to go away for about 6 weeks, maybe. All right, so in between now and then, we can get that episode ready, and you can do your video and send it out, and we can make those two the main topics for one of our upcoming episodes.
I'm not sure about the second one. We'll see. Not sure about the second.
I'm not going to wait that long, Vic.
We'll see.
Well,
there are. I mean, this is the sort of thing where I've held a story inside me for years because I didn't want to go through the trauma of talking about it.
Well, let's just go ahead and get it done.
And you know me that I'm generally pretty open.
Let's
so
do it. Let's do
all right.
it.
Well, gentlemen, I think this was maybe the oddest rundown we've done.
The brain dead.
But
I love it.
It's the land of the brain dead.
What's wrong, David? You don't like that topic, that name?
It's
the
better
land
than
of
the
the brain
one that I
dead.
keep coming back to. So,
Well, we could always entitle it the rabbit.
we are not going to call this down the rabbit hole.
Dave is the.
I'm not doing it.
No, Dave is the.
Sorry,
All right.
Dave.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you. And
Absolutely. Enjoyed it tonight,
I
guys.
did enjoy this, and I will talk to you guys.
Maybe we should call it stovetop stuffing.
Oh my God! God Almighty! That's even worse.
That's funny. That's funny. Okay.
Maybe I've created something I shouldn't have created.
Keep a note of this for future reference.
Exactly. That's even that. I mean, this subject tonight was even worse than the. I keep forgetting the name of it, Vic. The Alaska thing, the moose.
Oh,
Moose Knuckle?
My town, my theoretical town, Moose Testicle, Alaska. Yeah, Moose
Yeah.
Testicle, Alaska. And there is no Moose Testicle, Alaska. It's just when you're talking about somebody moving so far away from the world that they just don't want to be seen or heard of again, they're heading to Moose.
I just knew we had a blast on that one that night
Heading to
too.
Moose
But,
Testicle,
but the rabbit tonight just blew it out.
And I tried so hard to describe the topic with clinical detachment.
Yes, you did. But we're all like teenagers, Vic. Come
Exactly.
on. You should have known where this was going to go.
You can't give me even a hint of sexuality and not have me take it to the
There you
nth
go.
degree. I mean,
There you go.
enough.
I mean, even Clive in the background, he's saying, "Where's my pimp hat?"
I mean, the jokes just write themselves. So,
all
right.
right, cut it here.
All right, I'm going to end the podcast. Thank you guys, and we'll talk later.
Sounds good. Thank
have a
y'all.
good night.
Bye. Thank you for listening to episode 19 of the first season of the Paranormal Rundown, the only podcast in the world with 2,375 random topics. If you feel kind, please give us a rating and review. It really does help. All the music tonight came from Lobo Loco, Smart Sound, and the fine guitarist Bunny Barnes. That's for real, Bunny Barnes. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the show. Please write to us at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. And in 2 weeks, we'll be here with episode 20, closing out the season. Thank you again.